I see Charlie. Charlie, can you give us an okay hands up?
I can hear you, Nick.
Okay, thank you, Charlie. Linda, how are you? Linda? All right, I'd like to call this, I'd like to call to order the Special Finance Committee, the whole meeting of the Board of Directors for the School District of the City of Allentown for today, June 30th. Prior to tonight's meeting, an executive session was held to discuss confidential and legal matters. Dr. Martinez, any superintendent remarks?
Thank you very much. Just two things. Number one, we are very excited at the start of our summer program. We have many students attending, and we look forward to interesting news and updates that we will be advertising on our website. I'd like to take a moment to really congratulate and say thank you to the Finance Committee, particularly to the board members, Chairperson Charlie Field and Nick Miller and the Cheryl Johnson Box who led the charge for this work. I also want to recognize administrators, deputies, Ms. Ramos and Dr. Brown, who worked diligently with the board members and his team on finances and the preparation of the budget. But in particular, I'd like to say thank you to our business manager, Harry Arista Kaysen. It's close. Thank you very much on behalf of our families, our community, and especially our students for the job that you've done in preparation of this budget. And also to Ms. Kara Hauser from the IB, thank you for all of your support and working closely with us throughout the weeks.
Thank you. If anyone from the public would like to speak on agenda or non-agenda items, there's comment cards in the back. Please fill them out and hand to the administration. This time we're taking agenda items only on one card from Sherry Billington.
And every year we say the same thing, that the residents of Allentown can afford it. But I say that we cannot afford what will happen if we don't fully fund our school districts. Firstly, without a relevant, rigorous, and fully and fairly funded education, the cycle of poverty and minimum wage jobs will be our children's future. If we don't invest in our children and their education now, we will be paying for this lack of investment tenfold in the future. Our tax dollars will instead be funding our criminal court systems and prisons, where it currently costs $50,000 per inmate per year to be incarcerated in a Pennsylvania prison, and in the drug and alcohol rehab programs, with costs ranging from $14,000 to $27,000 for a 30-day inpatient stay, plus the additional costs of detox and follow-up treatments, all with the expectation that relapse and readmittance will occur at least 3 to 5 more times if the person doesn't die first. More of our taxes will be needed for medical assistance, where currently 37% of the state budget is already paying for this benefit, plus the additional costs associated with more individuals needing public assistance, food stamps, and housing benefits. This also means less of a sustainable workforce maintaining the Social Security system that so many of us rely on. Secondly, even if it appears that we have money available now, one thing that we should have learned from our past is that miscalculations, emergencies, and changes in politics and policies can deplete any fund balance in a blink. Our current governor has been an advocate for public education and has tried to make funding for Pennsylvania public schools a priority. Unfortunately, it all could disappear in 1.5 years when he leaves office. Public education has never recovered from important administration cuts. Thirdly, in order for our school district to have a good credit rating, it is recommended that we have at least 15 to 20% of our general fund budget in our fund balance at all times. Even with the 3% tax increase, we will have less than 5% in this fund, and this will quickly disappear once all the CARES and COVID money is spent. Fourthly, and most importantly, Allentown children have a right to a public education. A long time ago in my U.S. government course at William Allen High School, I not only learned about my rights, but also my responsibilities as an American. One of those responsibilities, as established by the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, is the funding of public education through property taxes. It is the responsibility of all of us to ensure that every generation of children has the opportunity to participate in a free, accessible, quality education as it was available for most of us. Our responsibility also includes demanding that Harrisburg implements the fair funding formula to all education dollars, that state and federal mandated policies be fully funded, that legislation be passed that requires academic and fiscal accountability of charter and cyber schools, and that they invest in early intervention and early childhood education programs. Additionally, we must require that our school board be transparent and fiscally responsible in their decisions, even if those decisions are unpopular with taxpayers. We need to question the expenditures, not the necessity of funding public education. Do I want another tax increase? Of course not. But I also don't want to be that person that has to explain to the children of Allentown that they are not worth the investment of 19 cents per day, which is what it would be under the 3%, or even the 33 cents a day at the original 4% increase. We all need to do our part to show our children that they are valued, that they have a future, and that they are worth more than a weekly cup of coffee at Wawa. Thank you.
Thank you. I have no other cards at this time. Ms. Ramos, do you want to, for agenda item number 1?
Sure, thank you, Mr. Miller. So it's June 30th, and we're finally here to present to the board and community our 21-22 final budget. And just to be clear, we anxiously awaited for information from the state, as that's what's going to drive much of the change you'll see in our budget this evening. The budget, as Dr. Martinez mentioned, has been a result of a lot of hard work and commitment from our administration, our business office, and specifically our finance subcommittee. Mr. Beal, Mrs. Johnson-Watts, and Mr. Miller, if you didn't know it, have met with our administrative team at least weekly since this part act is in March. Tonight, you will see a few areas in the budget that have been adjusted since our initial presentation. This is related to increases in state subsidies, ESPA's allocations for maintaining the district operations and our reduced tax rate. In addition, we've also continued to work through personnel expenses to ensure that our personnel expenses and estimates reflect the value that we place on our employees. With that, we can go to the presentation moment. Actually, slide 3. We've chunked our presentation tonight into 4 primary areas. We're going to start with our year-end projections, where we estimated to end this particular fiscal year 2021. We're going to take a short walk through what we proposed in May and compare the May budget proposal to the updates we're recommending here in June. And finally, we'll close with the final 21-22 budget that we're bringing forward this evening. So with that, I'll turn the presentation over to Harry, and Jose, if you could skip forward another 2 slides. Again.
Oh, they're going to get the next slide.
And the next slide.
What we have up there is the 2021 year-end projections. As you approximately a $3 million deficit at the beginning of last year. Since then, the dynamics of the district changed. You can see on the revenue front, we're projected to be about $1.8 million over budget. That's primarily due to the recovery of expenses from FinCon and additional grants received from the state. In terms of the expenses, we have increased. Well, we have increased expenses in areas.
And Harry, you need to be a little bit louder, I can't hear you.
What's that?
I can't hear you clearly now, yeah. I can hear myself though.
Can you hear me better?
Yeah, bring the microphone closer to you.
I hear an echo when I put it close to
Okay,
me.
that's great. There.
What? Okay. Sorry, we'll try again. So like I was saying, on the revenue front, we're projecting to be about $1.8 million over budget. That's primarily due to expenses from PlanCon and additional grants received from the state. In terms of expenses, you'll see that we have some areas that we've overspent, like charter tuition and facility repair. At the same time, we've had significant savings in other categories like salaries and all in all, we're projected to end the year with a small deficit, or with a more favorable year-end fund balance than we had budgeted for. With that said, I'll stop speaking to the budget. Okay, Jose, can we get the next slide, please? I don't think it's the right slide. Go backwards. One more. Okay, so here's what we have proposed back in May of 2021. Our proposal at the time was based on a 4.6% real estate tax increase and flat federal and state funding. We had also anticipated using about $26 million as those funds available to maintain operations in the district. Key thing to remember at this time is we were projecting flat funding from the state and from the federal side of the house. So if we go to the next slide, what's happened since that May 27th meeting? Thank you. We now have more visibility into the state's budget. The state budget includes additional instructional subsidies of almost $17 million. What we have on the screen is a snapshot of what those funds are in terms of basic ed and special ed funding. So there's a $200 million increase in the DEF funding, with Allentown's share estimated to be just over $9.5 million. Based on an increase in ASD gets $898 million going to the DEF formula, and that's going to be continuous moving forward. There's also a one-time supplement of $100 million that goes to the formula. That's estimated to be ASD allocation of $6.3 million. You may have heard about that in the papers in terms of the level up planning. Keep in mind that this is technically one-time funding, and while we anticipate $100 million going to a DEF formula for 22-23, that's not really guaranteed. In terms of the FCF funding, there's an additional $50 million going to the formula, which equates to just over $1 million in FCF funding. All in all, that's going to be approximately $17 million. Next slide, please. So the state budget also includes some one-time, and I'll stress the one-time there, ARPA funds that are available. Those one-time funds are classified into three different categories. What we see up there is the allocation for ASD. Those three categories are going to be learning loss, after-school set-asides, and summer enrichment programs. Due to the fact that they're one-time funds, I would caution the district must use those funds intentionally and strategically and find ways to best utilize those funds. The good news is we have quite a bit of time, so we can have a thing by the areas of greatest need. These one-time set-asides are not included in the budget. That will not be included today, but they are allocated to the district. So what does this all mean for ASD and impact on Can we go to the next slide, please? Back up. Thank you. So as a result of the state increase of about 13% in the VEF, we've had to revise our key assumptions. On the revenue side, we've reduced our tax increase from 4.6 to 3%, and we've updated our federal and state revenue allocation. On the expense side of the house, we've adjusted our salary and benefit numbers to include the summer incentive pay and other adjustments in anticipation of finalizing the open contract. Next slide, please. So we thought we'd give you a side-by-side comparison of where we were in May and where we are today. Looking at the local revenue sources, and keep in mind this is the source where the district can directly influence the revenue. You can see that the main change is the reduction in real estate taxes. There's about a $1.6 million decrease from our original proposed budget. And that's based simply on an estimate of going from 4.6 down to 3%. And the average impact per household is going to be roughly $68 per household if at the 3% goes. All of it coming from the local side will get flat. Next slide, please. You can see quite a bit of changes here. This is what we're updating numbers based on the state budget. So basically, we went from 120 million to over 136. The special ed funding increased from 11.8 to 12.8. And then all other state funding is going to be flat. One thing I do want to highlight here is that the FICA and the state reimbursement of employee benefits, they're direct calculation based on our expenses from salary. So we incur benefit expenses to cover their reimbursement. Next slide, please. Lastly, you'll see the federal revenue sources. So federal revenue sources, we essentially trued up to what our allocations are, or estimated allocations from federal funds. You can see there's a decrease in Title I and a slight increase in Title II and other adjustments. Not an overall material impact to the budget, but we do want to make you aware that we've trued up to the best estimates available from the federal funds. I do want to take a minute to highlight the fact that we've also reduced ESSER's funds allocation from 26 million to 16.8. That again gives us an opportunity to make some impactful decisions and develop strategies to best utilize those funds that are no longer going to be allocated to the continuity of operations. Are there any questions on any of the revenue changes? Okay. Put it on the next slide, please. So the main changes we've had on the personnel side of the house, one thing to highlight is we've had a 6% increase in healthcare, and increase in rates have gone from 34, have gone up to 34.14. I'm going to pass this to Jen, but she can go over some more other pieces.
Thanks, Mary. This is the one area in the budget where you will see an increase in the budgeted expense. And I wanted to be real clear about that as we look at the key assumptions. First and foremost, all of the existing positions, we budget them to be filled. And I think it's important to highlight that and also make a statement that even over the last 3 to 4 years, we've consistently ensured that our personnel costs, as much as we can manage them, we've maintained the staff needed at the bare minimum to keep functioning. We have not focused on reducing our workforce as it relates to personnel, even as we've moved in challenging times. So this budget and this increase is a result of that. There's also, as I said, a significant increase in our personnel estimates, and we're taking this opportunity to ensure that we are able to fund some incentives or salary adjustments, ensure that our labor agreements are funded appropriately, and of course, Mr. Aristokasian mentioned the summer learning incentives. And attached to this, sort of a celebration, if you will, over the last 2 weeks, with the support of the IU, we officially rolled our position control data live into Skyward. So tomorrow we're officially utilizing our position control system. So we have work to do in managing that system, but I say all of that because this all is a picture of the work that we've been trying to do and maintain to posture the district in a place where we have the data we need as it relates to fiscal data for decision-making. We have the data we need as it relates to personnel, and now we're attempting to attach costs and dollars to those personnel to ensure that we can move forward in the 21-22 school year confidently and implement the programs that we need to implement and the programs that we're going to be able to design with the ESSERS funds that are coming forward. Harry, if I missed something, feel free. I didn't talk about 6% or 34.9 because that's your wheelhouse, but.
Yeah, the only thing I would add is that we're also assuming that the employees on income protection or any type of leave are going to return to work. And if those employees don't return to work, we're going to fill the positions with new employees. So if we go to the next slide, we can see what this looks like in terms of numbers. And again, the main change here is the salary and benefits, and you can see where we're going from 124 million to 131 million. That's a direct result of the changes we just discussed. All other expenses remain unchanged, so charter is still at 66.195. Debt services, we're assuming no new debt, and there's a very slight change in all other expenses to the tune of just about 50,000. Nothing material. All in all, the expense budget is $375 million. If we go to the next slide, we can see how all this fits together. You can see the updates that we made on there and essentially put the budget back into perspective. So on overall, we have a balanced budget, total revenues of $375 million. That is with the trued up numbers from both the state and the federal side of the house. And again, assuming that we're using $16.885 million from ESSERS for continuity of operation. And that leaves us with a year-end fund balance of $5.027 million. Any questions before we move on? Okay, I'll pass it over to Jen, who's going to discuss some of our next steps.
Next slide, please. So moving forward, obviously the state released information to us this weekend that gave us an opportunity to reset and come forward to you this evening with a final budget. But in that regard, we do have some next steps to take. Our first big next step is finalizing ESSERS allocations, generating our reporting metrics and providing an update. And we're planning to bring that forward in August as we use the upcoming weeks to finalize that planning. The other piece that we're looking to structure as it relates to finance, and especially with our finance subcommittee, is taking a look at the reporting, budget reports, expense reports, things that drive the decisions that the board needs to make to start to take a look at what you're provided each month and be able to give you those things that are needed. So that's something that we'll be driving through our finance subcommittee so that we can start to streamline and provide the board the most efficient documents possible for the decision making.
Ms. Ramos,
Sure.
What's the timeline for the ESSERS allocation?
The application is due in September.
And when will the allocations be presented to the board?
We're planning to come forward in August.
Okay.
Finally, as I mentioned earlier, because we've been celebrating this, our HR department and our teams collectively have a big task ahead of us, as now that we have position control, we need to maintain position control. So we'll be continuing to push that work forward and keep things as accurate as possible. So with that, next slide, please. So Mr. Miller, I'll turn it back over to you. That concludes the final budget update.
I have a general question if it's, can
Yeah, go ahead, Ms.
I?
Conover.
Because I know after we do this, it's like we're almost at the end of this, right? Okay, so my question is, and it's not just for myself, but it's for the public. Could you share with us, Mr. Miller, what a healthy budget looks like for a district this size? What that number would look like?
You're talking in terms of we were fully funded?
Absolutely.
I believe it's in like 470 million.
Absolutely. And the reason why I asked that question is because year after year, we have budget time, right? And it's always a question. I know there's other, um, there's, we're looking for different ways to avoid raising taxes. But what I want, the reason why I asked that question is because, I need the public to be very clear. Because I'm looking around the room and this is something that was publicized and it's not, I don't know how many people who will hear from the public. Not that many, I think 2. And if there's a third person, raise your hand. I'm saying this to be purposeful because I'm an elected official, you elected me. You can yell at me if you want to and it's okay because I signed up for it, right? But I need the people to know that this is a legislative issue. And you cannot sit at home, and I know all of us work, create a system, find a liaison, do something. But we have to come together and create a system where we can legislatively, and if I'm wrong for saying this, I mean, I shouldn't be saying this, I'm gonna say it anyway, because this is what we need in order to close the achievement gaps for our children. That's why we're sitting here. We have to start pushing for funding so that we can have a healthy, fully funded school district. Fighting me after today is not gonna work. I'm gonna hear you, I'm gonna come back to these tables and I'm gonna push and I'm gonna fight. But when I go to the fight and it's only me, I have a problem with that. So I can't say this enough. I just want the people to know, we're dealing with $370 some million, and we're still looking up under rocks. You understand? We need the people who live here in Allentown not to move out. We need you to stand up and say, this is what we need for our children. If you feel that you don't have a child in the school district, you might not have a child in the school district, but you have a horse in the race. If you're renting or if you are a homeowner, you're going to be affected by the taxes or by the funding of the school district in whichever district you live in. And if you move to another school district and you do nothing, you're doing a disservice to that district as well. So I just wanted to be able to say that because I know everyone here works tirelessly for free. We only get paid out of the outcomes of our students. And so we talk about being transparent. I'm being as transparent as I possibly can. That 4.6 was a definite no for me. But I also know that we have to have some kind of funding to continue to maintain our district and to continue to push towards closing those achievement gaps for our students. So that's what I wanted to say, and I thank you for sharing that number with me, Mr. Miller.
Thank you, Ms. Conover. I'll entertain a motion forward to move this agenda item, the budget, to the meeting after this. Do I have a motion? Ms.
Nick,
Will?
I actually had my hand raised.
Okay, I just want to get the motion on the floor and then we can discuss the motion.
Okay, go ahead.
So I have Ms. Will, do I have a second?
Second.
Ms. Matheson? Okay, so now we'll take discussion. Ms. Vega?
Yeah, like Lisa said, for transparency, to the community, to those who are listening and will later watch this again. Can someone answer what happens if we don't do the 3% tax increase?
I'll defer to Harry and Jen.
You don't have to do the 3%. You could choose to not have an increase. It just means you're going to end up using more of the one-time funds to continue operations, or you're going to have cutbacks in terms of programs or otherwise.
Okay. And then the second part to that question, for those listening, can you give a basic breakdown? What is that 3%? What does $68 mean per household? Is that annual? Is that monthly? So that those listening can hear from you.
The $68 is an annual estimate based on the average household value per the county information. Median household value in Allentown is about $109,000. 3% tax increase is going to account to roughly $68 per household on an annual basis.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted that said out loud. Thank you.
And I just would like to ask of the administrative team, did you or did you not want to share the graphic that illustrated what would happen tax-wise with different tax increase increments, or no?
We can speak to those changes or requests.
Okay, because, ultimately, I think that that graphic was very helpful in understanding what would happen in an average household, which I believe the average household pricing was 109,000 that we worked from. So it might be helpful to share that just so all of the board members and as well as anybody who may tune in understands.
I don't have the graphic here because I don't have my laptop, but I can talk to the graphic.
Okay.
Essentially what the graphic shows is what our projected revenues would be based on a 1%, 2%, 3%, so on and so forth, all the way up to 4.6. And we intentionally went with the 3%. I'm sorry about the echo. We intentionally went with the 3% because what the graphic shows is anything less than 1.5%, the district actually ends up with less revenue than where they would have this current year. So 1.5 is essentially the break-even point. We then broke it out by the average value per homestead valuation, which is $109,300, and the average tax based on the actual mills that's calculated. You divide that by the number, the 109 by the average tax, and then you can see that there's a $68 increase at 3%, a $46 at 2%. Obviously, there's nothing at 0, and so on and so forth. So essentially, you're talking about $23 per percent, roughly.
So I just asked about that only because I'm hoping that people do recognize the level of detail and effort that was placed in this process to come to this decision. So thank you for talking through it. And when we get here to Trexler, we're not using our own laptops. So some things are, you literally would have to tap into a different drive in order to get that. So thank you for at least talking through it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Johnson-Watts.
May I? I'm sorry.
Ms. Brace wanted
Oh,
to
I'm sorry.
go ahead, and we'll come right to you then.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. So Ms. Johnson-Watts, I brought the handy chart.
Thank you.
So first, Harry, I need to say thank you to Harry. He sat with me for probably over an hour and went through this little chart. This is what I would like to say. We budget every year. I've heard historically 93 to 95%.
That's what we actually collect. That's what I was, yeah.
So we budget historically 93 to 95%. This year's budget is with a 94% collection. We, therefore, in my mind, almost are penalizing those that pay their taxes to pick up the burden of those that don't pay their taxes. Because 6% of our homeowners, businesses, whoever, don't pay taxes. And it's a mix. We went through the list. It's a mix. It's not just the big high rises downtown. It's not just absentee landlords. It's not just homeowners. It's a mix of people. I was completely against any type of tax increase. I just want that out there. But Harry showed me that you need to maintain your tax base, and our tax base has decreased by almost 1.5 million from last year to this year. And so we do have to maintain that. And so I'm willing to increase taxes 1% if we collect at 95% this year. So I'm just throwing that out as an option.
Are you making a motion to amend the current motion that's on the floor?
Well, I don't know if we're doing that now, because this is just to put it through. We usually do that at the actual meeting.
Okay.
I'm just saying that's what I'm willing right now to do is a 1% increase with a 95% collection rate budgeted.
Okay, so we'll hold off for amendments
Yes.
for the, okay. Ms. Conover, you had a comment?
I did have a comment. I wanted Harry to speak about the 3% equaling to, 3 million over a course of a year. Can you speak that? Because you said a lot of stuff, and I know there's some people who have turn-off valves when you start speaking a different language. So I kind of want to put it in layman's terms. It's like $3 million a year, and if we don't do anything, what happens?
Oh, okay, so if you don't raise the taxes and if you stay flat, essentially because of the decline in your tax base, you
Right.
end up with less revenue than you had last year this time. If you go at the 1.5 or pretty close to there, that's your break-even point. So that means we have to go at least 1.5 in order for us to earn the same amount of revenue that we did last year based on just a decrease in the base. What we collectively in the finance committee agreed on was a 3% based on assumptions that there's going to continue to be tax appeals or otherwise, and we're gonna have to make up the loss or gain in revenue. So the 3% is where we settled.
So it would be to our advantage if we should decide to go with a tax increase. I'm not going to put a number there. It would be again to our advantage, as I began to speak before. Let this be the last increase without having a plan, and I'm talking about community. We have to legislatively start speaking and pushing for certain things so we can get money from other places and we can make other adjustments. I'm not gonna name specifics, but we have to strategically plan in order to fix the problems that we have. The problem is not just here with these non-board members. Am I correct in saying that? Mr. Aristakezian, did I say right?
Aristocasian,
Aristakezian, I'm getting there.
you're getting there.
So I just wanted the people to understand that if we don't do anything, we're digging a deeper hole. But if we do something, we're putting ourselves in a position to continue to thrive, because the money that we have, because everybody's saying, oh, the school district's getting all this money, let's see what they're gonna do. They're fiscally irresponsible. You need to understand that monies that are given are monies that are allocated. So you just can't take that money and put it wherever you want. So if we want to really get the job done, then we have to come up with a plan to acknowledge this money that the district's getting as money. Look at it as a gift for now, to deal with learning loss, but we still had problems before we got this money, and we have to address those. So we can't, we didn't hit the jackpot. No, we did not. So I'm saying that to say, if we go with a tax increase, we have to accept this tax increase with a renegade mentality and to have a plan to move forward to fix the problem. And I can't do it with all these empty seats that I'm looking at right now in the room, in the 21 people that's actually online. So I'm just being transparent because we really want to ensure that our kids' achievement gaps are filled. I'm looking for Allentown to become a model school district. I want this, what we're talking about now, to be a story of the past, and we'll be in a position where we can celebrate. So thank you very much, Mr. Aristakezian and Nick Miller. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Conover.
Mr. Miller, I'd like to speak.
Ms. Harris?
Yes, I cannot in good conscience ask for a tax increase. I can't. Our Allentown district, city, can't afford, the people who live here can't afford it. They can't afford light bills, they can't afford food, they can't afford clothes for their children. And how in the world am I going to ask you to give me 3% more of what you have when I haven't, ASD has not delivered what they should be delivering to our students? So no, I will vote no. We should not be doing a tax increase.
Thank you, Ms. Harris. Any other comments from my fellow board members? Seeing no hands, I will call a roll. Mr. Secretary? Oh, we all in favor? Yeah. Okay, all in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed?
Aye, nay.
Okay, ayes have it. Moves to the meeting afterwards. All right, so at this time, we have no public comments on non-agenda items. Any old business that come before the board? Any new business?
Mr. Miller?
So Homestead, you want to make that present? Okay, I apologize, I missed that. So, Ms. Ramos, we'll do the Homestead presentation now.
Yeah, that's a calculation that I'm going to turn right over to Mr. Aristocasian.
Yeah, I think this is the one that Charlie promised to quiz at the upcoming meeting. So we redid the calculations. If you can go to the next slide, Jose. Essentially, the key things to remember is the available gaming revenue is 9.64 million. You went too far. Thank you. The 15,711 is the approved number of homesteads, and the preliminary tax reduction is $613. If you recall, last time we did this calculation at a 4.6. Since then, we've adjusted to the 3% increase as in our final proposed budget. If we go to the next slide, we can go through the calculations once again. So the available gaming revenue is $9.6 million. The millage rate based on the 3% is going to be 21.5036. When you divide A by B, which means the available gaming by the millage rate, you get $448 million that's available for the 15,711 homesteads. That brings the average valuation to 28,544 for the properties that are going to be considered excluded. If you go to the next slide, please. When we compare the information to the county database, you can see that 87 properties had an assessed value lower than that $28,000 number. That leaves $53,400 available to be reallocated to the remaining properties. And the remaining properties would be the 15,711, take away the 87 that are considered ineligible. That brings your new number to 15,624. You plug that into the formula base, and it gives you an additional assessed value of $128.61. That becomes added to the 28,544, and your new exclusion value is 28,672.76. Looking at the next slide, please. Looking at the county information, there are no additional properties below that $28,672 valuation. So all eligible gaming revenue has been allocated, and the new estimated average property tax reduction is $616.57. If you go to the next slide, it just shows you the calculations of how we came up with the 616, and that'll be estimated to be allocated to the other remaining properties at the 3% or 21.5036. What's above all this presentation is the resolution that must be signed. Spells out the steps that we did to calculate these. Any questions?
Seeing no hands, do I have a motion to move this forward to the special board meeting?
So moved.
Ms. Brace, do I have a second? Mr. Thiel? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Oh, any discussion? I apologize. Any discussion?
I just want to say thank you to Mr. Arian, because I've sat in on a lot of those finance committee meetings, and I've been aware of the homestead exemption for a very long time, but I've never fully understood it until the last meeting. I just wanted to thank you for me that now.
Any other discussion? Ms.
I
Johnson
do-
Watts?
Yeah, I mean, I was gonna save it for the main meeting, but we're gonna be in the same room and it's gonna be all of us here. In terms of whether the district is giving our taxpayers what they should receive, the first level that had to be done was clarity. You know, when people go to the supermarket to shop and they don't know how many dollars are in their wallet, or they don't know how many more dollars they're going to get, or if they're shopping with a credit card and they don't know what their balance limit is, or they don't know how much more room they have in terms of credit. All of that goes to someone walking into that supermarket not knowing what they can even get. It's unfortunate that it took the amount of time it took for us to get to this place where now we know what we have in our wallet. Samuel Jackson did not pay me to say that. But we know what's in our wallet. We don't like what we found out. We don't like what we found out. But now we know. So that was a major step. Now, the next mode is, how do we improve upon what we have? So my request is that anyone that has a concern about, well, what has the district done to deserve the tax increase? There were tax increases voted before where the work had not been done. The position control had not been set up. The clarification of what each dollar goes to wasn't clear. There's been a lot of change. There's been a lot of improvements. We've got a long road ahead of us. So ultimately, I just want to make that statement clear. The clarity of this presentation, in my book, was beyond anything we've ever had. So I just thank you all for that and the work that you put in. And so as we make a vote in the next session, I hope that will be taken into consideration.
Thank you, Ms. Johnson-Watts. Any other comments or discussion on the motion? Okay, well, all in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? All right, so this moves forward to the special meeting. All right, is there any old business to come before the board? Any new business? I'm going to present a motion to direct the administration to prepare full 5-day return to the classroom this fall with a full hybrid option if the COVID numbers change, and with a backup full online option for parents. Do I have a second for that motion? Ms. Harris, any discussion on that motion?
Yeah, can you repeat it again?
Sure, it's to direct the administration to prepare for a full 5-day return to the classroom this fall. It gives the option for parents to go completely virtual if they want, and a backup plan for hybrid if the COVID numbers change. And it's just a direction for the administration to present that at July's end of month meeting.
Got it.
Any comments, questions? Ms. Harris?
Thanks, Sarah. I thank you for that, because has been a lot of concern from parents who still want to do virtual, some want to do hybrid, and others do want to come back to school. So the fact that we are giving them that option is greatly appreciated, and it would serve our students well. So thank you for bringing that motion forward.
Thank you, Ms. Harris. Any other discussion? Okay, hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Wait, we got
Aye.
one more question. Go ahead, Ms. Conover. To direct the administration to prepare for a 5-day return in the fall and to present that to us at next month's board meeting with the option for hybrid and virtual, depending on the scenario. So just to present those options to us. Okay. All right. Any other questions or concerns?
I'm sorry, it sounded a little different. The initial one sounded like a decision that it was going to have a situation where we would go 5 days and parents could choose full virtual.
Correct.
But then just now, when it was repeated, and I guess we could rewind later,
Right.
it sounded as though we just looking to see options.
No, so the motion is to direct administration to present to us at the end of next month to prepare for the 5-day full return with the option for parents to go full virtual for their students and have a backup plan in case COVID numbers change for a hybrid option.
Got it.
So if I may, I do have.
Go ahead.
something to say. I hope I'm not too loud. Well, I'm on the education committee, and this is my understanding. In the fall, the board, the kids will be going back. No hybrid.
Right.
Now, and we can discuss this later, but I'm just gonna, transparency, right? If in the event there is COVID or a snow day, or somebody gets sick, then we will have that in place to accommodate. But to offer hybrid, like we're offering hybrid now, that was never discussed in the education committee.
So hybrid would only be if the pandemic numbers
Right.
change.
So,
And it was just a motion to have them present it to us at the next board meeting.
but because we had that, I'm just wanted to be clear to the public, because people are gonna be getting it wrong. saying,
Right.
Oh, they're gonna stay a hybrid,
No, that the direction is to
returning to brick and mortar
5 days a week.
5 days a week. And then if there's some kind of change in terms of offering something that we have never offered before, maybe a virtual model, Mr. Singh, then we will then present that to our district.
Correct.
But we're looking to return in the fall, regular brick and mortar session.
And my motion is asking the administration to present that plan at the end of next month.
And I agree with that, but I just wanted it to be clear.
Yep.
But
Fair.
what continues to fall out in the back and forth is that part about parents being able to choose virtual from the get.
Yeah, correct.
So I just need for us to be clear, because each time the exchange goes on, it sounds like there is no option for a parent to opt in to be virtual if they are not comfortable with their child being in the building. So I just,
That is included. Correct.
gotcha. Thank you. It keeps seeming to fall out as we go back and forth. So I just need to get that clarified. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments, concerns? Okay, we'll do all in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. All right. Any other new business to come before the board? All right, may I have a motion to adjourn? Ms. Harris, do I have a second?
Lisa Conover.
Ms. Conover, all in favor? Aye. Right.
I'd like to call to order the special meeting of the Board of Directors of the School District for the City of Allentown for today, June 30th, 2021. As Mr. Miller said, prior to these meetings, an executive session was held to discuss personnel matters. Mr. Secretary, can you please call the roll?
Ms. Brace,
Here.
Ms. Conover,
President.
Ms. Harris, Ms. Johnson Watts,
Here.
Ms. Matheson,
Here.
Mr. Miller,
Here.
Mr. Steele,
Here.
Ms. Vega,
Here.
Ms. Wilt,
Here.
9-0, all board members.
Thank you. We'll now have the Pledge of Allegiance followed by a moment of silence. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic which it stands, one nation, under God, with liberty for all. For my board president remarks, I would just like to echo the comments that interim superintendent Dr. Martinez made during the committee of the whole meeting, thanking the finance committee for their continued work with the administration on getting us to this evening's meeting, and also to all of the people in the finance office, Ms. Hauser, Mr. Reese, I'm never going to say that, Easy, and Ms. Ramos, and everyone else who I'm omitting. I want to thank you for all of your hard work, and also for the presentation that you gave this evening. That was very clear for me, and I appreciated that very much. Dr. Martinez, do you have any further evening? If anyone from the public would like to speak on agenda or non-agenda items, please fill out the card and hand it in to the Deputy Superintendent Ramos. At the close of the meeting, anyone who would like to address the board on a non-agenda item will have an opportunity to speak. At this time, we're only taking comments on agenda items. Do we have any cards? Ms. Ramos? No? The card. Moving right along, the agenda item for this evening is the approval of the final budget as per Exhibit A and the adoption of the 2021-2022 Homestead Farmstead Exclusion Resolution as per Exhibit B that we just reviewed in the committee of the whole meeting. May I have a motion for the approval of the superintendent's report? Oh, finance, I'm sorry, it says superintendent in my script. For the finance report.
So moved.
Motion by Ms. Matheson, second by Ms. Conover. Is there any discussion on the motion?
I'd like to make an amendment to the motion. I'd like to amend the budget for a 1% tax increase with a 95% collection rate.
I'll second that.
Madam Chairperson, could that motion please be repeated? The sound is really fuzzy at this end of the room.
About to do that, Ms. Matheson. What I was going to say is that the amendment to the motion on the table is amending it to have a 1% tax increase with a 95% collection rate.
What's the last part of it again?
95% collection rate. Calculation. Correct?
Yeah, so do we have a second? Can I speak on it?
Do we have a second?
Did you?
I second.
Okay.
Okay,
Mr. Miller, yes.
so these are my quick calculations. If we budget 95% collection, it's an additional almost 1 million. It leaves us approximately $500,000 short of our budgeted 9.18 million, so that 1% should fill that, or will fill that budget that we need to maintain our tax base.
Is there any discussion or question? I have a question, Mr. Reese-Kazian. Can you address to us historically, if you can, why we budget at the percentage that we budget? Is that because that's pretty much where we land every time with our collection rate?
That's correct. We historically are around the 94% collection. Keep in mind that's a gross number, not a net. So when you net out the fees, it's actually.
So if we have the 1% tax increase, that takes us into the flatlining that we talked about earlier. If we had the 1.5% increase, which would have reduced our income or our revenues by $1.5 million. Right?
If I did the rough math correctly, it's going to bring us to right around the same amount of budget.
And again, I didn't quite hear
So
you.
if I did the math correctly, the 1% with a 95% collection is going to give you almost flat revenue versus last year, just about where.
Okay, so we would be operating with the budget that we presently have.
Well, no, in terms of the tax line item itself, you would have that, but that's only one line item on the overall budget. You're talking about 90 million out of 375. If you take out the difference, seeing where we are with the projection for, so you're gonna be about $2 million decrease in your revenue. Tax,
That potentially would require us to dip into that $5 million fund balance if we don't fill in with the one-time ESSER funds, which we're already allocating to learning loss and things like that. I'm just trying to follow along what the consequence.
guess you would have to either dip into the fund balance, have to make adjustments to the expenses, but you're gonna have to make up some of it.
May I again mention that the sound system is really a problem. And as a result, I'm not hearing most of what Harry has to say and only a portion of what Nancy has to say.
Can I ask a question? Is that okay? Okay, so we had originally, am I correct? We originally budgeted to put 26 million of ESSERS 2 in, and now we're budgeting only to put 16 million, so it's an extra 10 million of ESSERS money that's being carried to next year. So there is ESSERS wiggle room to cover without having to use that full 10 million that we decreased out for the budget.
You can definitely use the ESSER funds, to make up the difference.
Okay.
Yeah, but you know, I feel like I'm pulling teeth here. Just for clarity, I was definitely against any type of tax increase. Matter of fact, I was outside doing the commercial saying no 4.6. But then I sat down with my colleagues and some of them, not all of them, and we're talking about this ESSERS money. Like again, this is our savior. It could be a blessing, but if we did the 3% and we had to begin to figure out how we were going to, because we have building deficiencies, we have all these other things that we need to address. So if we're looking at these ESSERS money and saying, well, if we only do the 1% for the people, or 1.5 or whatever number we come up with, we can take this money that we have, that we're gonna get one time, and we can save the day. But that's not what's gonna happen. What's gonna happen, we're gonna take this money, we're gonna make folks feel good, and they're gonna feel like it's working, and it's not working. So to me, it makes more sense to this is a lady who said I was against any kind of tax increase. But if we're going to commit to start with legislation and start pulling people together to do what it is we need to do, let's take our ESSERS money and do what we need to do with it. Let's raise the taxes to 3% and move forward. Now, if you want to collect 95% of our tax, then fine, do that too, because we need it. But I don't think that this is the time for us to start gambling with our $5. I mean, I'm just saying, you know, I don't necessarily agree with right now, because it makes sense. There's a lot of things we have to do. And I think if we don't do it now, while we have that ESSERS money, we may not have another opportunity to do it. And Carrie, if you want to comment, feel free.
My only comment would be on the collection rate, and again, keeping in mind that it's a gross, not a net. So raising the collection rate may actually cover you from the budget side, but if we don't collect it, puts you back in the same boat.
Thank you. Is there any other discussion or comment or questions on the amendment to our motion, which again is the 1% increase with the 95% collection rate?
I have a question.
Go ahead, Ms. Vega.
Sorry. So when do we know the total collected, the total percentage collected?
Well, we know the actual amount collected versus budget, and that's all done throughout the year. So tax season technically starts July and goes until December. And then you get some that are on payment plans and kind of paid throughout the year. So we even have payment plans that extend to March and April. If you look at our projections for this year, you'll see that we're slightly less than what we had budgeted for. If you ask me, I would attribute that to our ability to collect on the real estate taxes. Last year, we were at 95% on the budget side. So if we collect 98% of 95, you're back at 94.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or discussion on this amendment to the motion?
Our only shot. Next year, I'm not gonna vote for tax increase. This may very well be our only shot.
Anyone else? And the amendment, we need to vote, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Lister, we need to vote on up or down the amendment that's on the table to our motion, correct? So I
Yes.
should reread the amendment, and then that is what we're voting on. We're voting up or down through roll call, whether or not we are in favor of the amendment or not in favor of the amendment, correct? I want to be clear. Is everyone clear on that?
Yeah.
And do you want me to? Can you hear me, Audrey?
I can hear you.
Sorry?
I said I can hear you.
Okay, I'm trying to project my voice too. Okay, so just to be clear, we will be taking a roll call vote on the amendment to the motion, which is 1% tax increase with a 95% collection rate. Mr. Secretary, can you please call the roll?
Ms. Vega,
Yes.
Ms. Wilt,
No.
Ms. Brace,
Yes.
Ms. Conover, Ms. Harris,
No.
Ms. Johnson Watts,
No.
Ms. Matheson,
No.
Mr. Miller,
Yes.
Mr. Thiel.
No.
2-7, motion fails.
So that takes us back to the motion on the table, which is the vote for the budget that was presented to us in the committee of the whole meeting. So the final budget. Is there any discussion on the original motion as presented with the 3% tax increase?
I make a motion.
Thank you, Mrs. Conover. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion or comment or question? My only comment would be, before we vote, is that while I'm very grateful to the state and to the initiative of the Level Up, I was in Harrisburg today and Superintendent from Pottstown said, it's not a touchdown, it's a first down. And I'm feeling that because I feel that that is spot on. When we were discussing this in the committee of the whole meeting, Mrs. Conover asked Mr. Miller how underfunded we are. And we're underfunded to the tune of $100 million in ASC. If all of the dollars would run through the fair funding formula, we would receive an additional $100 million to equitably educate our kids. So while I thank the state for increasing our allotment, and I appreciate our first step moving forward towards getting us equitably funded, we do have a lot of work to do advocacy-wise to make sure that our children continue to get what they need to get the quality education that they deserve. So just wanted to put that out there on the record. And this time I'd like to take any other questions or comments from my colleagues.
I would like to apologize to the Allentown families for this tax hike. I don't believe in it. And during the time that we are going through, I know it's going to make your household budgets even tighter, and that's not fair to you.
Thank you, Ms. Harris. For any other discussion? can't see Mr. Thiel or Ms. Vegas again, so I just want to make sure that they're not up.
No.
Thank you. Seeing and hearing no further discussion, Mr. Secretary, will you please call the roll?
Ms. Wilt,
Yes.
Ms. Brace,
No.
Ms. Conover, Ms. Harris,
No.
Ms. Johnson Watts,
Yes.
Ms. Matheson,
Yes.
Mr. Miller,
Yes.
Mr. Thiel,
Yes.
Ms. Vega.
No.
6-3, motion passes.
Very much. At this time, we are taking public comment on any non-agenda items. Do you have any cards on non-agenda items? Is there any old business to come before the board this evening? Is there any new business to come before the board this evening? I have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Miller, is there a second?
Second.
Second, Ms. Johnson Watts? All in favor of adjourn? To adjourn?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you very much, everyone.